Ethan woke to the harsh light of the arena. The sun was not warm here, it was pale, almost sickly, bouncing off the metal walls that enclosed him. Around him, the crowd roared. Not a human crowd, of course. The spectators were aliens of all, shapes and sizes, their faces sharp, their eyes glowing in colors he had never seen. Some had multiple limbs, others wings, but all of them were here for one reason: blood sport. Ethan's hands were bound, his pockets empty, and his usual tools were gone. He was an engineer, not a fighter. And yet here he was, standing in the center of the arena, completely unarmed. His captors, hulking creatures with gray scales and spiked shoulders, circled him slowly, their claws clicking against the metal floor. Just another human for the crowd. One of them growled, its voice low and rough. They'll be gone in minutes. Ethan's chest tightened, but he refused to show fear. He had learned long ago that fear could make a person weak. He looked around, taking in the arena. There were metal beams, broken crates, and discarded tools scattered across the floor. Even though he had no weapon, he had something the others did not: his mind. From the corner of his eye, Ethan noticed her. She stood apart from the crowd, silent and still. Her armor was sleek, decorated with patterns of her tribe, and her eyes were sharp and golden, full of curiosity. She was an alien warrior, and unlike the others, she did not seem eager for a fight. Ethan felt a strange sense of calm watching her. She was observing him, studying him, and not with hate. The announcer, a tall creature with 3 eyes, bellowed, "Let the human prove his worth." Immediately, the largest opponent lunged at him. Ethan dodged instinctively, rolling across the floor. He grabbed a broken metal pipe lying nearby, swinging it to block a second attacker. Sparks flew when the pipe hit an alien's clawed arm, and the crowd hissed in surprise. Ethan realized quickly that brute strength would not win here. The aliens were faster, stronger, and armed, but he had balance, quick thinking, and a sharp eye. He jumped onto a crate, flipping over an attacker and knocking him off balance. He ducked under another attack and kicked a nearby lever, causing a net to drop and trap one of the attackers temporarily. Through it all, the golden-eyed warrior never looked away. She tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. But Ethan felt as if her eyes were studying his every move, waiting to see what he would do next. Minutes passed like hours. Ethan moved like water, bending, twisting, and leaping. He did not rely on weapons, but on timing and clever use of his surroundings. Crates were used to block attacks, pipes became levers to trap enemies, and the uneven floor became an advantage. The alien spectators gasped and shouted, some in awe, others in disbelief. A human surviving like this? Impossible. Then, a shadow moved beside him. One of the faster, more agile opponents had tried to sneak up, but Ethan spun and grabbed a loose chain hanging from the ceiling. He swung, knocking the alien off balance and into a wall. The crowd erupted. Even the announcer's 3 eyes widened in shock. The golden-eyed warrior stepped closer to the arena wall, her arms crossed. She was silent, but Ethan could sense the shift in the air around her. She was impressed, yes, but also intrigued. Humans were not supposed to survive without weapons. Yet here he was, dancing around attacks, clever and calm. The next wave of attackers charged at him together. Ethan took a deep breath, scanning the area. He noticed a narrow gap between 2 walls and a pile of old metal rods. With a swift motion, he led the attackers toward it, ducking at the last second. The first alien stumbled into the pile, rods pinning it to the ground. The second hit the first and fell, the momentum throwing both backward. Chaos spread among his opponents, and Ethan used the confusion to leap onto a higher platform. From her corner, the warrior's eyes glimmered. She could see his mind at work, analyzing, predicting, and reacting. This was no ordinary human. She had seen many creatures fight, many species strong and trained for combat, but humans were unpredictable. Their small bodies could survive, through cleverness and instinct, and this one had both. Ethan's breathing was steady. Sweat ran down his forehead, but his mind was clear. Every movement he made was precise, every choice deliberate. He began to understand the rhythm of the arena and the patterns of his enemies. The crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Some were cheering for him now, not out of support, but because they had never seen anything like this. The final opponent, larger and armored, stepped forward. Ethan's eyes met hers for a brief moment. The golden-eyed warrior. She gave a slight nod, almost imperceptible. A spark of courage ran through him. He did not need her help, but somehow, that small acknowledgement gave him strength. Ethan waited, then dodged the first strike with perfect timing. Using the floor, walls, and his own reflexes, he turned the giant's momentum against it. The opponent stumbled, then fell with a heavy crash, sending up a cloud of dust. The arena fell silent, for a heartbeat. Then the crowd erupted louder than ever. The announcer's voice was nearly drowned out. "The human survives, unarmed, undefeated." Ethan stood tall, chest heaving, sweat and dust covering him. His arms were sore, but he was alive. And in the corner, the golden-eyed warrior stepped closer to the edge of the arena. Her gaze was fixed on him, thoughtful, admiring, and something else, something Ethan could not yet name. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He had survived without a weapon, using only his mind and body, and he had caught the attention of someone far more dangerous than the arena itself. The warrior girl's voice, low and almost soft, carried across the arena as she whispered to herself, "Interesting. Very interesting." Ethan did not hear the words yet, but the feeling was there. The sense that his life was about to change forever. The arena gates closed behind him, the next round looming. But for now, he had survived. And somewhere in the crowd, the golden-eyed warrior had made a silent decision. The game had just begun. The arena gates opened again and the bright light hit Ethan's eyes. He squinted, adjusting to the sudden glare. Around him, the alien crowd roared. They were not expecting him to survive the first fight, but he had. His mind raced. Every movement, every choice, had brought him this far. And now, a new challenge awaited. This time, he was not alone in the corner of his attention. The golden-eyed warrior girl, Lyra, had not left her perch. She watched silently, her golden eyes following him as if measuring every step he would take. There was no smile, no approval, only calm observation. Yet that silent focus filled Ethan with a strange confidence. The announcer's 3 eyes glimmered with excitement. "Next wave," he shouted. From the far gates, several alien combatants entered. They were quicker, smarter than the last group. Some carried energy staffs that crackled with light, others had shields and mechanical claws. Ethan's heart raced, but he forced himself to breathe evenly. He had no weapons, yes, but he had his mind. As the first attacker lunged, Ethan ducked, rolling across the floor. He grabbed a loose panel from the ground and swung it, not to strike but to block. Sparks flew, catching the light and dazzling the nearest enemy. Then in one swift motion, he pushed the panel toward another attacker. The alien tripped over it and stumbled. The crowd gasped. This human fought without fear, without weapons, and with cleverness unmatched. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She had seen thousands of fighters in her life, yet Ethan's movements were unusual. He did not attack with anger or brute force. He observed, calculated, and used his environment to his advantage. Each action was a solution, not just a reaction. Her interest grew. Ethan moved toward the center of the arena, ducking under a sweeping staff. He noticed a thin rope hanging from above. Timing carefully, he used the rope to swing past a charging attacker, causing it to crash into a nearby barrier. Then, without hesitation, he jumped onto a pile of crates, landing with balance and speed that surprised even him. The crowd's shouting grew louder, some cheering, some in disbelief. But the moment Ethan saw Lyra's gaze, calm and sharp, the shouting faded in his mind. She was different from the others. She was not here for amusement. She was watching, learning, and perhaps admiring. The next wave of attackers was more organized. They moved as a group, trying to corner him. Ethan realized he needed to think several steps ahead. He scanned the arena and noticed a narrow corridor, with loose panels and wires. If he could lead them there, he might slow them down. He ran, baiting the aliens carefully, One of the attackers lunged, missing him by inches. Another tried to block his path, but Ethan spun, kicked debris at it, and slipped past. Step by step, he led them into the corridor. As he predicted, the narrow space caused confusion among the attackers. They stumbled, jostled, and blocked each other. Ethan ducked, rolled, and sprinted forward. From the edge of the arena, Lyra's eyes followed every move. She was impressed. Most aliens relied on strength, weapons, or brute skill. Humans were unpredictable, and this one, small and unarmed, had an energy she had never seen in anyone else. Her interest turned into curiosity, then into admiration. She leaned slightly forward, whispering under her breath in her own language. Very clever. Very brave. Ethan noticed a small lever on the wall of the corridor. With a calculated glance, he pulled it. Instantly, a trap activated. A net fell from above, ensnaring two of his pursuers. The remaining aliens paused, confused. Using the moment, the arena gates clanged shut behind him, leaving Ethan in the holding area. The air was thick and warm, smelling of dust and metal. He flexed his stiff muscles and took a deep breath. Surviving 2 rounds without a weapon was more than he had ever imagined. Still, he knew the real challenge was only beginning. Chains clinked as the guards approached. These creatures were large and imposing, their faces unreadable, but they were predictable. Ethan moved carefully, keeping his balance, and watching for anything useful. He had learned to read the patterns of alien behavior. It helped him survive. From the shadows, he felt eyes on him. He turned slightly and saw her, Lyra, the golden-eyed warrior. She was not part of the guards, nor was she among the crowd. She was close yet hidden, watching him silently. There was a sharpness in her gaze, but also something softer, something rare. Respect. Ethan knew he could not approach her openly. Any human showing too much boldness might be punished, but he understood gestures, glances, and body language. Lyra's posture said she was considering a risk. She was thinking about helping him, even if she could not yet act. The guards dragged Ethan to a small cell. It was plain with a metal floor and walls, but it was better than nothing. He sat against the wall, rubbing his sore arms and legs. Then he noticed something small, a loose panel near the floor, just enough for a hand to slip through. A chance, small but real. Hours passed. The arena's noise faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the holding area. Then, without warning, a shadow moved near the wall. Ethan froze, heart racing. He had seen many creatures try to trick him, but this movement felt different. Controlled. Purposeful. Human, a soft voice whispered. It was Lyra. Her golden eyes shone in the dim light. Do not be afraid. Ethan's eyes widened. He wanted to speak, but he also knew caution was wise. Why are you here? He asked quietly. I am bound by my people's rules, Lyra said, her tone serious, but gentle. I cannot interfere openly, but I admire your mind, your courage. I can guide you if you listen carefully. Ethan's mind raced. He had survived this long with his wits, but he had never had an ally in this place. Why help me? He asked. Lyra's gaze softened. Because humans, you are unpredictable. You do not rely only on strength or weapons. You survive because you think, and that is rare. You have spirit. That matters to me. For the first time, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He studied her, carefully looking for any sign of deceit. There was none. Lyra's words, her presence, even the way she moved, all spoke of sincerity. We must be careful, she continued. The captors watch everything. If they notice us, punishment is severe. But there are ways to survive, ways to turn the arena to our advantage. Observe first, plan second, act last. Can you do that? Ethan nodded. I can. But we will need a plan to escape eventually. Lyra smiled faintly, the first real expression he had seen from her. Yes, but for now, focus on survival. Watch the patterns, learn the guards' routines, that is our first step. Days passed. Ethan and Lyra communicated in whispers and gestures. She taught him how to read the guards' movements, how to predict the waves of attackers, and how to use the arena's environment to create small advantages. Ethan learned quickly, combining her training with his own ingenuity. Together, though separated by rules and distance, they formed an unspoken alliance. Lyra could not fight by his side openly, but she influenced events subtly. She nudged attackers into predictable paths, delayed reinforcements, and created distractions. Ethan noticed the small advantages and used them immediately, never realizing, at first, that someone was guiding him. The golden-eyed warrior became his unseen partner. Ethan began to anticipate her moves, to understand the patterns she created. He respected her skill and he admired her strength. More than that, he began to feel a connection, though he did not yet know how to name it. One evening, as the arena lights dimmed, Ethan finally saw her clearly. She stood on a high platform, her golden eyes fixed on him, her expression calm but intense. The guards were distracted by another group, giving her a brief moment to act. She whispered softly, just enough for him to hear. "You have learned quickly. Soon we will have a chance to change everything." Ethan's heart raced. He realized that she was more than an observer now. She was a guide, a protector, and perhaps even a friend. For the first time, he believed that survival was not only about strength or cunning. There was someone else who saw him as more than a human in an arena. The next day, as he entered the arena again, Ethan felt a new kind of courage. He moved with confidence, not just for himself, but knowing that Lyra's eyes were on him, silently supporting him. The other fighters noticed something different too, a spark of strategy, a cleverness that could not be predicted. As Ethan dodged, rolled, and used the environment to his advantage, he caught glimpses of Lyra's influence. A misplaced guard, a sudden opening, a distraction perfectly timed. It was subtle, but unmistakable. He understood finally that he was not alone, even in a place designed to isolate and destroy. At the end of the round, Ethan stood amidst the chaos, breathing heavily but victorious. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time she gave a slight nod. It was not just approval, it was recognition. She had chosen him, not with words, but with her actions, her attention, and her strategy. Ethan returned to his cell, heart pounding. He realized that the game had changed. Survival alone was no longer enough. With Lyra's guidance, they could become more than prisoners. They could become a force the captors had never expected. And deep inside, Ethan felt something else stirring, a feeling he could not yet name, but which promised that this strange alliance might lead to something far greater than mere survival. The arena gates would open again tomorrow, but Ethan knew he was ready. He was no longer alone, and somewhere, high above the floor, Lyra's golden eyes followed him with careful attention, already planning their next move. The game had shifted. The arena gates opened with a metallic clang, and Ethan stepped forward. His muscles were sore from the last fights, but his mind was sharp. This time, something had changed. He was no longer alone in spirit. He knew Lyra was watching, and now he could feel her subtle guidance shaping the battle. The crowd roared. Today's combatants were stronger, faster, and more organized than before. Several carried energy staffs, others had shields, and one even had mechanical claws like the last giant. But Ethan's confidence had grown. He had learned to anticipate moves, to exploit patterns, and to use the arena itself as a weapon. From her high platform, Lyra's golden eyes followed him. She could not openly intervene, but she could manipulate the environment, nudge attackers into predictable paths, and create small openings. Her movements were subtle, almost invisible, but Ethan noticed the difference immediately. The first attacker lunged at him. Ethan ducked, rolling under its strike, and pushed a loose panel toward its feet. It tripped and fell forward, stunned. The next attacker swung a staff, aiming for Ethan's head, but a loose rope above twitched and brushed against the staff, throwing off the timing. Ethan took advantage. sliding under the weapon and using the staff itself to deflect the next attack. Lyra's presence gave him something he had not had before: trust. He could act with boldness because he knew she had his back, even if only indirectly. He leaped onto a higher platform, scanning the arena for opportunities. His eyes caught a stack of crates and a hanging chain. With precise timing, he kicked the crates forward, creating a barrier, and swung on the chain to avoid an incoming attacker. The crowd gasped. Humans had never fought like this in the arena. Most relied on brute strength or energy weapons. But Ethan used his mind, his speed, and his environment. He was clever, unpredictable, and alive with energy that no alien could easily match. One of the attackers tried to flank him from the side. Ethan spotted it just in time. He pivoted, grabbed a loose rod, and used it to trip the alien. The creature stumbled into a wall, narrowly avoiding a trap that Lyra had set moments before. Ethan smiled faintly. They were working together without words. Then came the largest opponent, a massive creature with claws and a mechanical arm. Ethan froze for a second, then noticed something in the arena layout. A narrow corridor lay to the right, with panels and ropes that could be used to slow down the creature. He ran toward it, baiting the giant into following. Lyra's golden eyes glimmered with approval. She had calculated this path long before, positioning minor obstacles to give Ethan a better chance. As the giant lunged, Ethan dodged and ran through the corridor, pulling a lever that dropped a net. The net caught the giant's arm, slowing it down, and Ethan used the opening to leap to safety. The remaining attackers hesitated, unsure of what to do next. Ethan moved with fluid confidence, spinning, ducking, and hopping across platforms. He used every advantage: loose panels, crates, ropes, even the uneven floor. Every action was precise, every move deliberate. Lyra watched intently, her expression unreadable but focused. For the first time, she felt something strange, admiration mixed with fascination. Ethan was not just clever, he was fearless, resourceful, and completely unlike any human or alien she had ever seen. Her gaze softened, though she did not look away. One attacker tried to ambush Ethan from behind, but he had learned to anticipate such moves. He jumped onto a crate, flipped over the creature, and landed on the floor. The arena gates clanged shut behind Ethan, leaving him in the holding area once more. Sweat dripped down his forehead, his arms ached, and his legs felt like lead. Yet he carried a strange sense of confidence. He had survived again, unarmed, against opponents far stronger than him. And more importantly, he had earned the silent attention of Lyra, the golden-eyed warrior who had been observing him since the first fight. Lyra appeared in the shadows, as if she had materialized from nowhere. She moved gracefully, her golden eyes focused on him with a strange intensity. Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. Her presence was both comforting and intimidating, a combination that made him alert and aware of every movement around him. "You have done well," she said softly, her voice carrying authority without harshness. Most humans would have been broken by now or worse, forgotten. But you... She paused, studying him carefully. "You are different." Ethan swallowed, unsure how to respond. I just survive," he said. "I don't know how else to do it." Lyra's eyes softened slightly. "Survival alone is not enough. You have courage, intelligence, and creativity. That combination is rare, and it has earned my respect, and more." She stepped closer, though still careful to keep distance. "Humans are unusual. Most creatures rely on strength, or weapons. You rely on your mind, your instincts, and your heart. That is why I watch you." Ethan's mind raced. He had expected admiration, perhaps even respect from someone like Lyra, but he had not expected affection. Her words carried meaning, deeper than friendship, and it unsettled him in a strange way. "Affection?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Lyra said, her gaze unwavering. In my culture, strength, courage, and honor are the greatest measures of a being. You have proven them all. That is why I feel this." She paused as if struggling with the weight of her own words. "And that is why I want you to be mine." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had faced deadly opponents, survived impossible odds, and outsmarted creatures far larger than himself, but none of it compared to the power of her words. He struggled, unsure how to answer. "I don't know what to say." "You need not say anything now," Lyra replied, gently. "Actions speak louder than words, and soon we will have a chance to act together." Her words sparked something in Ethan. He realized that their bond was no longer just about survival. It was about trust, respect, and a growing connection that neither of them fully understood yet. And if they wanted to survive the arena, they would need each other more than ever. The next day, the arena gates opened again. Ethan felt a surge of determination as he stepped onto the floor. He was no longer just a human fighting alone. He was someone who had earned the attention of an extraordinary ally, and he would fight not just for survival, but for the bond they had begun to form. The opponents this time were cunning, moving in coordinated patterns that suggested careful planning. But Ethan was ready. He observed their movements, anticipating each attack, and used the environment to his advantage. Crates became barriers, ropes became tools for movement, and loose panels created opportunities to misdirect the attackers. From her perch, Lyra watched carefully. She could not interfere directly, but she could create subtle distractions, shift positions of obstacles, and guide Ethan's opponents without being noticed. Each of her actions was calculated to maximize his advantage, and each success filled her with admiration. Ethan moved like a shadow across the arena, dodging, weaving, and using every trick he had learned. One attacker lunged from behind, but he flipped over its back and pushed it toward a narrow corridor, where Lyra's subtle manipulations delayed its recovery. Another tried to ambush him from above, only to find a crate perfectly positioned to slow it down. The crowd roared, some in disbelief, others in awe. They had never seen a human fight with such skill and ingenuity, much less survive against coordinated waves of alien combatants. Ethan could feel the thrill of their amazement, but he kept his focus on the task at hand. Survive, learn, and grow stronger. As the fight continued, Ethan noticed the pattern of Lyra's subtle interventions. He began to anticipate them, trusting her guidance without needing words. They were working together silently, their movements perfectly coordinated. In that moment, he realized that their connection went beyond strategy. It was instinct, trust, and mutual understanding. Finally, the last opponent fell into a trap, perfectly timed by Ethan's observation and Lyra's subtle influence. "Kauyi." Crowd erupted into applause, some cheering, some simply stunned. Ethan stood amidst the chaos, breathing heavily but victorious. He looked up at Lyra, and she met his gaze with something more than admiration, something that felt like pride, trust, and care all at once. When the arena gates closed behind him, Ethan returned to the holding area. Lyra was waiting, her golden eyes shining with quiet approval. "You fought well," she said softly, "but more than that, you proved that humans are worthy of respect. Courage, intelligence, and heart. All of them. That is why I choose you." Ethan felt a rush of emotion. Words failed him, but he understood. He had survived, yes, but more importantly, he had earned her trust and attention, and in her culture that was no small thing. Lyra stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Soon, we will leave this place. Together. You and I. Do you understand?" Ethan nodded, a mixture of awe and determination filling him. "I understand, and I want that." A small smile touched Lyra's lips. "Good. Then prepare yourself. The next challenge will require more than skill and courage. It will require trust, coordination, and a bond stronger than any opponent we face. Ethan realized for the first time that the arena was no longer just a place of survival. It was a test of connection, strategy, and courage, qualities that humans excelled in. And with Lyra by his side, he knew that anything was possible. As they stood together, planning and preparing for the next round, Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had faced impossible odds and survived. He had earned the respect of a warrior, like Lyra. And now he was not alone. The game was far from over, but for the first time Ethan knew that he had more than survival on his side. He had courage, ingenuity, and a bond that promised something greater than the arena itself. And in the quiet shadows, Lyra's golden eyes shone with a promise. Together, nothing could stop them. The arena gates clanged open one final time. Ethan stepped forward, muscles tense but mind sharp. He had survived every challenge thrown at him unarmed, and now he knew he was not alone. Lyra, the golden-eyed warrior, was watching from above, her gaze sharp and calculating. She had guided him subtly through every fight, and now they would face the greatest challenge together. The captors had planned something different this time. The combatants were faster, more coordinated, and heavily armored. It was clear the arena's overseers wanted to test Ethan and push him to the limit. But Ethan had learned to trust his instincts, his intelligence, and most importantly, Lyra's quiet guidance. She whispered instructions, just subtle enough for him to notice. Move left. Avoid the center. Watch the obstacles. Her interventions were invisible to the others, yet perfectly timed. Ethan adjusted his movements accordingly. The first wave of attackers charged. Ethan rolled under a sweeping staff and pushed a crate, tripping two of the aliens. Lyra's presence was unmistakable. Her influence was the difference between chaos and opportunity. The next opponent, a towering alien with mechanical claws, lunged at him. Ethan ducked, leaped, and used the uneven arena floor to make the alien stumble. From above, Lyra moved a hanging chain at the exact moment, distracting another attacker. The combination of human ingenuity and alien precision created a flawless rhythm. They were no longer two individuals. They were a team, in perfect silent coordination. Ethan's confidence grew. He realized that survival was no longer just about reflexes or observation. It was about trust, and he trusted Lyra completely. Each of his moves was timed with hers. Each of hers perfectly complemented his. Together, they were stronger than any opponent. The crowd watched in awe. Humans were not supposed to survive like this, and certainly not alongside an alien warrior. Whispers spread. The human had not only survived, but had become something extraordinary, a being worthy of admiration, and perhaps fear. Lyra's golden eyes never left Ethan. She admired his courage, his cleverness, and his calm under pressure. And she felt something else, a bond forming stronger than any loyalty she had experienced before. This human was unlike anyone she had ever met. The final challenge approached. A group of the largest, most dangerous combatants entered. Ethan's heart raced, but he did not falter. He had a plan. He led them toward a narrow corridor just as Lyra subtly shifted obstacles along the path. The giants stumbled, slowed by their own momentum and the carefully timed traps. Ethan leaped, swung, and used a loose metal rod to trip another. Lyra positioned a hanging panel perfectly, blocking an incoming strike. The combined effort was seamless. The captors were stunned. This human and alien pair fought like one entity. Then came the moment of opportunity. Ethan noticed the arena's control panel, partially exposed behind a stack of crates. If he could reach it, he could manipulate the gates and traps. Lyra signaled him subtly, pointing with a tilt of her head. Trusting her completely, Ethan sprinted toward the panel, dodging attacks with agility and precision. He reached the contro,